The Road Freight Association is appealing to the private sector to take control of failing state-owned entities to save South Africa's supply chain. It comes as the crisis at South Africa's ports reached new levels of congestion, with over 700,000 containers left stranded at the Durban harbour last week. Most ports have been experiencing delays of up to 14 days and more. I'm joined now by Gavin Kelly, who is the CEO of the Road Freight Association. Gavin, apologies, thanks for your time. So we know how bad the problem has been over the last 2 weeks. Has there been any intervention around how to solve it, especially given the kind of complaints and the kind of coverage that there has been of this issue?
Good evening, Kathy. Good evening, Stephen. Good evening to all your viewers. Not a nice topic to talk about. I'm not sure if there's 700,000 containers that are out there. I think the figure is somewhere between 23, 25,000 and 70,000, depending on who you talk to. But that's beside the point. The problem is that there's been chat. There's been a lot of noise made on the media, and I know the Road Freight Association has been spearheading a lot of that, because we are concerned that what we are seeing now didn't happen on Monday last week, or whatever has caused what we see now didn't happen on Monday. 10 years in the making, some are slightly shorter. You have Transnet saying, oh, we are aware of what happened 2 years ago in Richards Bay, and we're still working on the problem. That's not acceptable, and that's what we're saying, is that we cannot continue going the way we're going. We're going to find ourselves in a very, very deep, dark hole, because we're not going to be able to fix this within a week or two. It's going to take at best a couple of months. There are plans that have been put together in those plans, because we've heard that so many times before.
We are watching visuals of just the backlog, Gavin, and thanks for that correction. That number didn't sound right to me either. But when we look at just the extent of the backlog, one automatically thinks about what interim intervention is required to deal with it. Is it one of those cases where there can be an interim measure to clear up the backlog, or is it about waiting it out until the relevant equipment that is faulty has been replaced, has been fixed, before we see any change?
Well, Kathy, I think it depends on which backlog we're referring to. If we're referring to containers at the Port of Durban, for example, there are some systematic or actual processes within the port that are faulty or are not as efficient as they could be, and that together with equipment that is not at its very best, that's either broken down and being maintained, or not enough of certain things like gantries or cranes to move the various containers around, that one could fix relatively quickly. And I say relatively again, it's not going to be a 12-hour thing. It might take a month or two. But what we need to do is we need to be absolutely sure of what the causes are, and that we can fix them and keep them fixed, because these sorts of things have happened in and out at the Port of Durban. If you look at Richards Bay around coal, there's a far longer issue at play here. And to get to deliver the coal into a port that was not designed to take coal by truck, that's a far longer issue. There we have to fix the railway line. We have to get it back to its 80 million tons of capacity a year, and we've got to dump that coal at a place that it can be put onto the train to take through to the harbour.
Gavin, I think more importantly, the issue that you're raising is that it's not just one of South Africa's ports that's facing difficulties. There are a number of them, and this, of course, then creates a reputational risk for this country, especially when we're looking at those that are in the import and export market. What is the impact of that currently?
Well, the first thing, Kathy, is that we are no longer operating as the country that has the best ports in Africa. In actual fact, not even in the world. I think our ports, in terms of efficiency, have dropped right down to 40 or 50 in the list. I'm not quite sure, but it's something dramatic. The important thing is that the ports around us, the Walvis Bays of the world, the Lobitos, the Pairas, the Maputos, the Dar es Salaams, the Mombassas, have all over the last decade got investment and got their act together. They've seen the opportunities in terms of generating revenue, in terms of creating jobs in their own countries, getting the economies going. So they've started improving their ports. We have gone the other way. So that's the first problem, is that those who export or import around the world are looking at alternative markets. So, for example, there's a fair amount of the copper that comes from the DRC and Zambia that no longer goes through the port of Durban. It goes to Walvis Bay. So that's the first thing, is we're going to lose all of this sort of work. And then secondly, the global markets are going to say, well, you know what, it's just too much hassle getting it through South Africa. Let me buy from somebody else. So we could lose those markets as well. That means our businesses are going to have no one to sell to. There's going to be no pull for our products, and that whole story becomes a nightmare.
Yeah, there's such an incredible multiplier effect just on the impact on businesses. As CEO of the Road Freight Association, Gavin Kelly, thanks for your time tonight.